Well, this didn't go according to plan. I wanted to do a reaction video. You know the kind, the one where you watch a program, video and stuff like that, and you watch it for the first time and you react to it. There are so many of them on YouTube, and I thought I would do my first one for a program called What Would You Do? It's a popular program in the US, and long story short, it's basically hidden camera in a situation where they look at how people would react to a certain situation when it's kind of awkward, or kind of this situation that a person is rude or discrimination going on. What would that person do? Would they intervene, or would they stand up to that person? Would they just let it slide? What would you do? In this episode, I wanted to do one where it was a waiter being rude to a deaf customer. So I thought, well, that's appropriate. Let's see how that works out. And I wanted to record it, first time watching it, reacting to it. And I did that, and I did the editing, did all that hard work, and then I uploaded it into YouTube, and they decided to block it because of copyright. Ah, it was so annoying. It was just all that effort for nothing, and I found it weird that they blocked it. I understand the rule, but the thing is, it's kind of wishy-washy and kind of grey area when you see a lot of people doing that and uploading entire music or videos or clips from scenes and scenarios of a TV program or movies or whatever it is, and it's on YouTube, and it's, let in there and just off you go. But for mine, get out. So it didn't work out, so I thought I'll do it again, take two, and this time I will explain a few scenarios, and I will just show you a screenshot of certain areas where I thought, not cool, that was interesting, yeah, you should have done that, whatever it is. And I just thought I'll share that opinion after I have watched it, and share some scenarios where I thought things could have been done a lot better. And in some cases, I'm not criticizing the program, I'm criticizing ABC. And the reason I'm criticizing ABC a lot is the main problem that I have with the program is the terrible job they've done at captions or subtitles. It's so bad. There were certain situations where it just didn't make sense. For example, straight away, 5 seconds in, there was a delay in the caption appearing. Actually, it was too early in appearing. And then there were so many grammars and mistakes and full stop missing, comma missing, all that were happening. And then there was a situation where in one single shot, or maybe actually a few shots, and maybe in 5 seconds, 3 different people were speaking in different scenarios. One was the waiter, the other was the customer, and then the other one was the presenter of the program. Yet in the caption, all 3 sentences were appearing at the same time, instead of clearly stating that this person said this said this, and this person said this. It was a terrible job at just the whole thing. And there were other situations where they didn't put the capital letter in a person's name, in this case Nal DeMarco, and I found that a bit weird. And then there were another situation where it's gone completely missing. There were people talking and there were no captions whatsoever. So there were parts of a video that I had no idea what was going on. And there was even a part of it where a person was speaking and the caption says A, just A, and that's it. So it's funny that the first thing that I'm criticizing is not the program itself, it's actually the terrible job that the caption was done. And it's just ironic that it's an episode about a deaf customer being discriminated with the waiter, who's an actor by the way, all acting, and they didn't do the caption done at all. So it was awful done. And I found it even more weird when they even decided to throw in a couple of open captions. So that is when the captions are burned right onto the video itself. It's in there and you can't switch it on or off. They put it on automatically, manually actually. And I found that weird because, well, if the sound was not that obvious, then why not put it in different places more often? And then why do you put it in this situation and what in a situation where there were 0 captions at all? Closed caption and open captions. This is a big one for me, and I thought it was just terrible and it had to be called out. And that was even before I get into the program. So let's get into the program next. I've never watched What Would You Do before, but I knew it was all acting, and I knew it had to act out a scenario. The waiter is acting, the deaf customer is also acting, but it's really about the waiter creating a scene, discriminating that customer, not understanding what he's saying. And there were a couple of things I thought were just kind of over the top with the acting. For example, it was kind of obvious when the customer used hand gestures. For example, it's kind of obvious when you actually mouth it, where you know it's a menu, and then when they say it's deaf, then it's obvious. You know, it's just obvious that the person is deaf, looking for a menu, and the waiter was like, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're saying. I think that's a bit over the top, really. I mean, it's quite obvious. You don't have to be an expert in deaf awareness or even know any sign language for you to understand what that person is saying. So sometimes it was a bit over the top. Other time that was over the top is when the waiter was being very rude to the customer, and it made me think, does that really happen often in real life? Because the whole point of this episode was that similar situation has happened. There have been cases where, for example, Taco Bell, a customer was denied service because he was deaf, and the employee even threatened that customer that he will call 911 if he doesn't move. And that was very extreme, and Taco Bell released a statement, oh no, we are equal, blah blah blah. That was, general story about it, and I know people get this problem quite often, especially those who are profoundly deaf. So I don't get something like that. I get more of the frustration from the waiter. They get like, this is what I'm saying, trying to speak louder or trying to be almost condescending and exaggerate what they're saying if I can't hear them. I've had that. In this episode, there were times where it's like really over the top. Like, for example, the waiter was saying, you need to get out, or I can't help you, it's not my job, sort yourself out. Talking to the other customers saying that, you know what, I'm not being unkind, I've done what I can, I'm too busy, blah blah blah. It's a bit over the top at times, but I guess you have to do that to create a program and make it entertaining, I suppose. There were times, of course, where the customer did intervene and stood up for the deaf customer, and that was quite nice. But there were times where I thought it was quite funny that there was an assumption that deaf people can't be out alone. They have to have someone with them to help them, because we can't be independent. That's just absurd. But the waiter, I know, acting, but the customer, who I'm assuming it's not an acting, but the customer there agreed that, oh no, they should have someone with them to an extent. I found that a bit weird. I just, it just made me think, imagine how expensive that meal would have been. If the customer didn't have the person with you, to be able to interpret it, then you're gonna have to get a professional one. That costs money. Assuming that there's nobody in your family or friends circle who can interpret for you and speak sign language fluently, then you would have to get someone, a professional interpreter, and they cost money. So imagine you have to hire that person for the time just so you can have a meal at a restaurant. It's crazy, it's impossible. So that assumption is still there, and I find that a bit weird. Some of the reactions of the customers were brilliant, and there are a few that really stood out for me. One of them was when one customer said, I'm a professor of communication skills, and pointing to the waiter, you have none. And I was like, damn, ouch. And then there was another one where the waiter said, I have things to do, and he walked away, and the same customer said, oh, boo-hoo, we all have things to do. I was like, boom, get in there. And then a few of them were like, you can't treat human beings like that, it's just not right. And that was quite nice. And then there was even one person at the end, he actually got very emotional. And the presenter asked him, why is this important to you? Why do you feel like that? And you can hear him kind of like getting choked up and says, because I have a heart. And I was like, oh God, got me choked up as well. And that was quite nice. And yeah, it's nice to see that people standing up for the deaf customer as well, and it's like saying this is not right. And it's kind of obvious, really, isn't it? It's not right that you treat a customer like that, regardless of who you are, whether you're deaf or not. A few things that I have picked up on is that deaf awareness is not just for businesses, because I think general public could learn a few things as well. And I might be picky, and I've only seen a few minutes of the clips. Maybe I have missed the whole bigger picture. But there were times, for example, when Niall DeMarco, the celebrity deaf advocate, he came on and he communicated with the customer via an interpreter. And the customer, in this case the real customer, not the deaf customer who is acting, the real customer was facing the interpreter when Niall was speaking in sign language, because the interpreter was obviously saying it out loud and the customer assumed that that's how you face. But no, you face Niall, even though he's signing and the interpreter is saying to you what he's saying in another way, in another angle, for example, you can't see. That's okay. You face the person who is really the main speaker. And there were a couple of times where I thought, yeah, you should face Niall, don't face the interpreter. And I think it's a small thing, but I think it is important, and that's why I've written about how you should communicate with deaf people, because little things like that could make a big difference. I know some people will be thinking that I'm being picky, but I see it in another way, and I know this is something that I will never be able to relate to, but I have heard stories where a person using a wheelchair has gone through a situation where someone assumed that that person needs help and automatically pushed the wheelchair for the person without even asking for help. And it can be scary for them because it's just a surprise, a shock, and they should accept the help without being, asked. And I think that's the wrong way of doing it. And there was a time in the episode where, again, the customer didn't seem like she asked the deaf customer whether he needed help or not. She just jumped in. And I know she has the best intention and she's trying to help. I get that, totally fine. But I think, sometimes just ask, can I help you? I don't know what can I help you in ASL, and BSL would be like that, I say. And that, I help you, can I help you? And that's it. So there were times where I thought, oh, maybe you should ask first before just jumping in, taking the menu and just pointing to what that person wanted and then trying to translate for the waiter. I know, again, best intention, but it's the little things like that that can make a big difference when you are connecting and helping and just really trying to get involved in a conversation with a deaf person. So these are some of the things I've picked up, and I could have gone on for longer, but as I said to you, the video was blocked by YouTube. Thanks YouTube. And I think it'd be useful for you to watch the whole thing. It's about 15 minutes long. You can watch it in the link in the description down below, and you can watch the episode and see what you think. And I'd love to know what you think about that episode as well. And I've got two questions. If you were a customer and you saw this situation, what would you do? Would you step in, or would you sit back and just feel a bit nervous about intervening? What would you do? And if you have been in a situation where you were a deaf customer and you have faced that kind of discrimination, what has happened to you, and when did it happen, and how was it done, and what was done in the end to kind of help you and prevent that from happening again? Let me know what you think, what you saw, all these things in the comment down below. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to see more stories and just understand what happens out there, because I don't face that same situation as in that episode. Mine is a bit different, just like anybody's experience is different. So let me know in a comment down below. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. In the meantime, I will speak to you soon. Take care.